The reasons I want to give this presentation is to talk about my inspirations and the meanings in my artwork. The inspirations for my pencil drawings and oil paintings on canvas and on canvas folding screens came from my love of exotic plants and water gardens, from childhood fairy tales, my study of universal myth, from the symbolism in the tarot, and from my spiritual beliefs and practices. These practices include shamanic journeying, a ritual of calling the spirits, and the practice of transmutational art. I was also inspired in the 80s by the ancient cultures in Mexico, throughout Southeast Asia, and by the beauty and mystery of the rainforest in Costa Rica. Through shamanism, myths, the tarot, and the observation of ancient animistic rituals in Southeast Asia, I noticed a strong connection between mythological characters and Jungian archetype. I created my own personal transformational myths using archetypal characters. My paintings are arenas where psycho-spiritual evolution is played out before my actual transformations take place. This journey continues to be my life journey, expressed through art, my passage to individuation. Perhaps that's the human journey. In the 80s, I worked on a number of still life drawings and paintings from plants in front of windows, and with their shadows reflected on the wall. This pencil drawing from 1990, titled Shadow and Light 1 and Shadow and Light 2, are examples of the former. I was fascinated by the play of light and shadow on the leaves. In this oil painting, Afternoon Still, 1985, I was interested in exploring shapes and forms, the silhouette of the leaves, and the ones in front of the curtain I had silk screened with a leaf pattern. The oil painting Yellow Still Life, 1990, was one of my first experiments in creating shadows with light. In 1985, in Butterflies, I chose acrylic paints to produce an ethereal effect because they can be safely used diluted without the danger of cracking. This oil painting, 1990, was another light-shadow experiment. I called it Shadow because the reverential feeling I felt in front of it took me back to a spiritual shadow puppet play in Indonesia. Two-dimensional wooden puppets of Jungian archetypal characters, a prince, a princess, a witch, and a wizard, acted out battles between good and evil behind a lit screen. Enthralled, almost forgetting that I was watching an actual puppet play in front of me, I felt myself transported to a spiritual realm. Shadows seemed to me to be the material reflection of the material world. Universal Shamanism, 1991, is a symbolic oil painting of the ritual of calling the spirits enacted by tribal societies universally. I produced it during the time I was a member of a Michael Harner shamanic drumming circle, where I learned shamanic journeying. First, we rattled and drummed in order to go into a trance and called the spirits from the four directions. Then we lay down with our eyes covered in a darkened room and listening to a monotone drum beat in an altered state of consciousness in which it is believed that the soul leaves the body, we entered the ground through our respective openings. We traveled through a tunnel into the shamanic lower world. Our experiences were somewhat like lucid dreams in which we were able to control our actions. The tunnel opened to wondrous and mysterious worlds where we met personal power animals from whom we retrieved needed aid and advice for ourselves and for someone in the circle. I never forgot how awestruck I felt entering a Costa Rican rainforest for the first time with a group of tourists. towered over by gigantic trees, surrounded by plants with huge leaves, I was in an Alice in Wonderland world. I fondly recall how delicious the sudden warm rain felt on my skin. We danced in the puddles like small children. After returning home, I tried to recapture those feelings in that dense, majestic jungle with oil pastels and oil paints. However, the best I could come up with in 1990 was this oil painting on canvas, Jungle Fantasy, a stylistic, almost two-dimensional forest with exotic birds. I felt frustrated by the result, not realizing what vital part this painting would play in my creative development. One day I noticed this painting standing behind some plants in pots on my drawing table. I wondered what would result from my playing with the illusion of reality, the painting, with the reality, the plants in pots, combining the two in one drawing. To my amazement, what resulted from this experiment was this pencil drawing, a denser, more complex forest image, which I named Crazy Rhythm, because it reminded me of a black and white drawing in a museum about the 20s jazz age. This was the pivotal moment in my creative journey in which my imagination, the portal to the spirit world, opened up. From this point on, the flower pots became superfluous and my imagination became unleashed. The parrots from the painting Jungle Fantasy gained shamanic headdresses. No longer tethered to reality, excited by new possibilities, I created my imaginary jungle in color, with my first transformational myth inspired by a shamanic journey. I titled the oil painting Hero's Journey. Having completed the painting in 1990, I retold the actual shamanic journey in a large pencil drawing. These two artworks contained my first visual stories. In the shamanic journey, I was taken to a forest in the lower world in a boat guided by a giant moth, a night creature, and a raven, the messenger of the gods. As I was standing at the edge of the forest, I was recalled by the rapid drumbeat, and my shamanic journey had ended there. I wanted to explore the rest of the story. I imagined myself as an archetypal hero. My hero in the painting stands expectant at the edge of the forest, his fear of the unknown, confronted by death, the symbol of the ultimate unknown. This terrifying being entices him, disguised by a mask, to enter the forest, while Trickster, Death's companion, mocks him from a tree. He knows what awaits Hero in the forest. In this painting, the foolhardy hero's future self awaits him under the tree. Through his experience in the deceptively enticing forest, he no longer sees the world with rose-colored glasses, becomes distrustful, self-protective, dons a psychological armor, and becomes a Pierrot, the sad clown. While I was working on the drawing, I noticed skeletal hands appearing and floating through the trees. And the tree trunk on the left had turned into a giant human bone. In this drawing, as in the painting, I created the drama with three archetypal characters, Hero, Death, and Trickster, as the protagonists. The Death card in the tarot is a card of transformation, and the mythological Trickster holds a great degree of secret knowledge. At the time, I didn't know the meaning of the shadows of skeletal hands, but they gave me a sense of foreboding. I named the drawing Hero's Journey into the Bone Forest. The forest revealed its secrets in 1997 in this oil painting. It took 7 years for me to revisit the myth and reveal the bone forest. As the curtain is opened, we see that the dense, beguiling jungle is gone, with only a few remnants of its former beauty remaining. It is now a hollow place where something transcendent is taking place. We see a ghostly severed skeletal arm under death, indicating that this could be a battlefield where incorporeal battle takes place. As I saw this image showing up on the canvas, I reflected back to the shadows of skeletal hands floating through the forest in the drawing. At the time, I didn't know what they indicated, but I strongly suspected that there was something supernatural in the forest. We see that the forest is a place where death reigns, a battlefield in the spirit world. A further indication that this arena is in an incorporeal realm is the spiritual transformation of the 3 mythological beings. Death and Trickster have shed their disguises and revealed their true numinous characters. Another being has taken the place of Hero's future self, a luminous spiritual being. I wanted to show in this painting, in symbolic terms, the transformation that takes place in the bone forest. I knew that death was a transformer, a catalyst in the dismemberment and rebirthing of Hero's ego. In shamanic terms, the archetypal hero needs to submit himself to dismemberment by spirits in the lower world in order that his material ego, built over previous incarnations and through societal influences, can die and allow a new, healthy ego to be born. Hero in this painting is still blocked by death from seeing the real forest. Now he may be ready to wage his inner battles, unearth and accept his repressed feelings of fear. His shadows, according to Jung, feel the pain fully, no matter how painful, and let it go. Trickster plays an important part in the shadow work by uncovering Hero's repressed shameful feelings of fear. Through this psycho-spiritual battle, his higher bodies will awaken and he'll be infused with spirit. The evolved future hero spirit self sits under the tree in this painting. This transformational process, death and rebirth or renewal, was revealed symbolically, bit by bit to me by spirit in the center of the painting. This is another oil painting, 1996, Garden of the Goddess, but this time it's my mythic depiction of female transformation, which takes place in an allegorical garden in the lower world. In order for a woman to become authentic and whole, she needs to own all her human characteristics, even the ones not viewed as feminine by society. Her strength, her power, her assertiveness. In Jungian terms, she needs to develop her positive animus, her masculine self. The archetypal heroine needs to descend into the lower world, into her unconscious, to recover her shadows, just as Hero does, in order to be psychologically and spiritually evolved once she recovers them. She needs to own them, and not only own them, but be in control of them. The cycle of female evolution is depicted by the leopard changing into a female human being crouching on a branch. She has retained her basic animal characteristics, her instincts and intuitions. Her future whole spiritual self is the goddess Chatelaine, archetype with the keys to the garden of transformation around her waist. The fierce black dog represents her baser emotions, such as anger, of which she is in control. As in the Strength card in the tarot, she is mastering raw emotions in order to center herself and deal with volatile situations in relationship to others, calmly with understanding. 2 years earlier, I had conceived an oil painting from sketches I drew in Bali of women walking to the temple with offerings to their gods. The 4 women from bottom to top represent 4 characteristics of women: self-confidence, intelligence, innocence, and worldly experience, which they display proudly. Garuda, the Hindu male god, represents patriarchal and religious control, which is receding into the background. The red water lily epitomizes their burgeoning womanliness and flowering sexuality. A year later, I explored a myth after a painful breakup of a relationship in the oil painting Snakeman Meets the Forest Queen. In this myth, desires and baser emotions rule, leading to personal suffering and conflict within the relationship. They are blocks to individuation. Quote, a process of transformation whereby the personal unconscious is brought into consciousness by means of dreams, active imagination, or free association, and I believe through creativity, to be assimilated into the whole personality, Wikipedia. In other words, once again, their shadows need to be unearthed, owned, transmuted, and healed, or they will emerge inappropriately, causing pain. We project our repressed feelings onto one another if we don't work on ourselves. In Buddhist philosophy, it is believed that we must not attach ourselves to earthly desires, or they can overtake us. Sexual desires without emotion are symbolized in the painting by the snakes that are a part of the male and which are turning back on him and on the enraged female. He is the symbol of the unevolved, non-committal male with a repressed emotional side, which in men is considered weak by society, and operates through purely sex in relationship to women. The female strength, not condoned by our patriarchal culture, is repressed and bursts out of her as uncontrolled rage in relationship to men. They both need to do inner work and accept their unaccepted parts to become whole, and bringing all of themselves into relationships have a healthier connection to their partners. The strangling fig on the left strangles the tree trunk on which it grows, squeezing the life out of its host, just as the lifeblood and the relationship get strangled. Deep wounds are inflicted as seen in the tree on the right, which take a long time to heal. The pain after a breakup can be gut-wrenching. I've always loved Japanese folding screens and wanted to create one. I wanted to produce sculptural paintings. Each panel would contain a separate image, but when the screen would be laid out flat, the individual images would make up one whole image. The screens would be double-sided canvas, and the panels would be held together by hinges that would allow one to fold the panels forward and back. The back of the screen would be one color chosen from the painting. This folding screen from 2000, Dance of the Earth Spirits, shows a mythical, symbolic union of the spiritual, grounded female element with a spiritual, robust, natural male element celebrated in the lower world. In 1998, I painted the oil painting Renewal. As I was transferring the image onto the canvas, two of the plants looked like skeletal feet. So I made them into skeletal feet. I felt excited because they were once again symbols of transformation, death to renewal. Not surprising, as death and rebirth or reincarnation is present in all of nature. This painting offered such hope for me, with Gabriel's horn on the upper left corner, heralding the reawakening of nature. It is an annual sacred ritual. This is my first folding screen, Water Garden 1, 1999. Another celebration of nature. The image with the 4 panels flat, panels folded back, panels folded forward, back view. This oil painting on another folding screen is Water Garden 2. Panels flat, panels folded back, panels folded forward, back view. This oil painting from 2010, titled Water Garden 3, represents the path towards psycho-spiritual individuation leading to illumination. It shows the 3 levels of consciousness: the unconscious on the bottom, with the life energy suppressed through trauma, as was in my case; the playful goldfish in the water, according to Jung, the commonest symbol for the unconscious, illustrates the vitality of the personality, repressed but beginning to emerge into consciousness, the goldfish poking its head out of the water on the left. Through trauma, one suffers soul loss. Quote, "Whenever we suffer physical or emotional trauma, it is the shamanic belief that a part of our soul leaves the body in order to survive the experience. With every cut and wound, our essence and vitality grow weaker. This process is called soul loss, awaken.com. Vitality can be regained through shamanic soul retrieval, quote, reintegrating soul parts back into a person to creating healing, lonewolf.com. The conscious levels represented by the floating lotus, quote, the lotus is born under the mud, growing through the water to reach the surface, and therefore the air and the light of the sun. This growth is identified with man's life born on earth, but desiring the elevation to the air, Wikipedia. The tree on the left signifies the traumatized self, ego, and the tree on the right, the freed, healed ego, harking back to the bone forest, where inner battles take place and new healed egos are born. The new vital self, ego, is epitomized by the green vital tree on the right. The path leading to the third level, the superconscious mind, quote, the hidden spiritual system behind intuition, spirituality, and physical spiritual healing, finermind.com. In my painting, is symbolically guided by the Japanese lantern. From the third level, one might get connected to one's higher self, quote, the eternal spiritual light of one's soul that comes from God, that will take one's soul back to God. It is the ultimate goal of the spiritual evolution of the ego. Andrew Camargo, founder of the School of Modern Soul Science. This oil painting, The Jungle, 2008, I assembled from a collage of photographs. While transferring the giant collage, as usual, my imagination took place over. Here are some details from the painting. A Buddha figure appeared near the bottom middle. A leopard emerging from the jungle in upper left side. Another threatening leopard peering through bamboo stalks in the bottom middle. A leaf turned into a leaf creature. I didn't realize that this painting, which was to be a serene Japanese garden, would become a healing garden. As I was designing my Japanese garden, my creative spirit, which often steps in, had a different idea. Suddenly, a stitched-up human heart appeared in the center of the painting. At first, I felt annoyed. This red heart was ruining my calm Japanese garden and my color scheme. I didn't want to include it. But I've learned that I need to honor these gifts. Once I accepted it and added it, another smaller, healthy human heart showed up above it. I realized that the painting contained another transmutational healing image, a healing of the heart. I felt grateful. Now the story unfolded. I realized that the truncated branches in this painting represented my vital energy that had been cut off through emotional abuse and didn't get to grow and flourish. The blue tendrils symbolized my human fragility and vulnerability. Then the message came through my mind. Only through the healing of the heart can we feel inner joy and vitality and radiate joy and vitality outward. Only through the healing of the heart can we grow and develop into psycho-spiritually. I titled the painting Healing Garden, Healing of the Heart. In 2014, I had a spontaneous vision as I was lying down, in which I saw myself in this supine position on the ground with an apple tree emerging from my navel. I got up and drew the image with pencil on paper. I learned that this was a universal mythological image. The tree, called Axis Mundi, connects heaven and earth. At the navel is the portal to the spirit world. In my vision, the blossoms turned into ripe red apples. In the drawing, to show the natural transformation, I used the truncated branches from the Healing Garden painting. Sprouting out of these truncated branches, and from the new branches, I drew buds. From the buds, blossoms, and from the blossoms, fruit. This natural growth seemed to me to be an allegorical growth of the personality, to vital growth, to wholeness. During fabrication, the figure began to change. A transparent layer formed around it, which I later learned was the etheric body. Quote, a vital body or subtle body propounded in esoteric philosophies as the first or lowest layer in a human energy field or aura. It is said to be in immediate contact with the physical body to sustain it and connect it with higher bodies, Wikipedia. Because I saw this as another healing image, I renamed the painting Healing Garden 1 and the drawing Healing Garden 2 Growth. 6 years later, I wanted to create another drawing for the series. I wanted to change the apple tree to a jungle plant. But once more, Spirit had another intention, and I had to honor it. As I was tracing the image from the drawing, Healing Garden 2, onto tracing paper, intending to trace the drawing onto a sheet of drawing paper, to my surprise, I observed the body falling apart. I remembered what I had learned about shamanic initiation. I realized that Spirit was showing me symbolically the shamanic self-healing journey into the lower world, the stage in effect in the hero's journey in which the courageous hero takes a journey into the lower world and subjects his ego to dismemberment by spirits. He needs to allow this process to take place in order to receive a new healthy ego and be psycho-spiritually reborn. According to Andrew Camargo, ego dismemberment liberates soul forces, which can be used in a regenerating process, in gaining a new life force, vitality. I titled the drawing Healing Garden 3, Dismemberment. At present, I'm working on another drawing, attempting to draw and paint the supine body, surrounded by its aura, with an exotic tree growing out of its navel. I'm open to co-creating with Spirit. For my severe bouts of depression in 2012, I took some psilocybin mushrooms. My depressions became manageable, but also had a wondrous side effect for me as an artist. They widened my portal to the spirit world. In this drawing, my spiritual helpmate took over completely. I started the drawing with 2 tree trunks and some plant forms from another drawing. I didn't know how to develop it. As I waited for inspiration, tiny white lines and outlines of tiny forms began appearing on the paper as if they were being projected. Fascinated and curious, I traced the lines and outlines day by day for months. Eventually, larger forms started taking shape, and even when at times I felt repulsed by what appeared worm-like creatures, insect pupas, crustacean-like organisms, and fragmented, decaying structures, I didn't stop tracing. I added to it consciously filled in outlines of mushrooms to make them three-dimensional. I realized from these and from a large outline of a mushroom, which I saw as a spirit mushroom that perhaps hasn't yet materialized, that this drawing was given to me by the mushroom teacher. In the drawing, forms are coming apart, decaying, getting dismembered. At the same time, new forms are being transformed from waves of energy. As seen on the far right, drifting around the snake of transformation, the drawing developed from the bottom upward. A humanoid figure emerged from the bones in the bottom middle. On the left of the nature figure, an open seed pod with seeds had formed. An outline of a heart formed around some fragmented structures in the center. I began receiving messages and thoughts I completely jotted down in the margin. At one point, I actually felt my heart beating, and I was told that it was beating to the pulse of the universe. I felt touched and humbled that I got to tap into universal creation. A poem came out of these messages. Creation, dissolution, integration, transmutation, forms out of atoms, atoms out of forms, continuous creation. The heart, the pulse of the universe pumping lifeblood, creating life, life within the ever-changing continuum. Rivulets of blood flow into the earth, nourishing nature. Fingers of bone reach into the shadows. Death, healing, renewal. I wanted to recreate the image on canvas with color, but because it felt like a daunting challenge, I chose only parts of the drawing to reproduce. I added a baby, which I connected to the seed pod already there with a tube like an umbilical cord through which he receives nourishment. He in turn nourishes nature, to which he is also connected. I created a hollow womb for him, which I called the womb of the earth. I also added the baby to the drawing. Bones above the womb metamorphosed into green shoots of vegetation beginning to blossom. Because slides, both the drawing and the painting imparted knowledge to me, I named the drawing Tree of Knowledge 1 and the oil painting Tree of Knowledge 2. This is Jungle Goddess 2015. It started out with a sketch of one of my exotic plants. I wanted to create a jungle setting for the jungle goddess, which I had previously drawn on paper. I filled in the background and worked on the plant. As I worked, the goddess appeared, part human and part leopard, along with her familiar, the green illuminated snake. The next 6 multimedia drawings, 2017 to 2018, are alchemical transmutational drawings that describe the healing of my heart. The first one came from a Soul Journey series. The following 3 from a Jungian mandala with images of my soul journey I created in the School of Modern Soul Science in 2017. Spirit started entering my heart and began focusing on myself. The next 3 transmutational drawing came to me in 2018. Balance, vessel receiving spiritual nourishment, light and healing and transformations through inner work, Jungian dream interpretation, journaling, meditation with binaural beats tracks, yoga and transmutational drawing, self-love. Started working in the school as a teacher's assistant, helping to heal other traumatized victims, being reborn, receiving spiritual nourishment, beginning to flourish. From this drawing, I moved to flourishing in the healing garden. I enjoyed very much sharing my personal artistic journey